Hello boys and girls, this is session 2 of our Minister of Emoven homeschool teaching. Teaching everything that we've not been taught really. I'm quite lucky. I've been brought back to a place where I feel really connected to in Greece, in Ellada, Land of the Light, and not too far away, 25 kilometres over the mountain, there's a place called Delphi, which is referred to as the centre of Earth. And when you actually go there and you stand in the middle of this magnificent mountain range, that you're surrounded by mountains within mountains within mountains, and it's like the Earth just spewed everything, all of her amazingness out into creation. And I went there last weekend because everybody had been saying to me about, you're talking about the Bank of Rocks and using kindness credits as an exchange to get rid of the type of money that we were talking about in session 1. Now there are some videos on YouTube that you can go and have a look at that explains how we do that. And people have said to me, it's a new idea and you're going to have to teach everybody all of this new system again, but it's not actually a new system. In Delphi, when I was saying that the people here were saying you need to go to Delphi because the history up there has got a Bank of Rocks, and now obviously we've got our own Bank of Rocks. Why did I need to go to see the old ones up the mountain? And I'm glad to say that I did go, and when we got there, between me hearing about this and actually going, we've done something called a restoration of rights, which gives all of the people in the world all of their shares of this planet and its resources back, because the way that the money was being created before now meant that we were actually buying back our share of this planet that was supposedly being held in trust for us, and we were getting our energy and turning it into these pieces of paper that we call slave tokens, pounds and euros, and then we were going to the shop and buying, let's say, a bottle of water that had been contaminated. It's got fluoride and chlorine in and all of the good stuff taken out of it, and it might have been bottled by such companies such as Nestle, and not exclusively Nestle, obviously, there's many companies doing this. Now, when you think about it really, who has got a right to sell you that water when it's actually yours? We don't know the answer to that. There has yet to be a contract provided by the creator of the water to say that Nestle can actually buy it from them and sell it back to us. And the way that they did that is they made this thing called debt, and they said that all of the people in the world owed a debt, and we didn't have the means to pay it back, so they took the planet and its resources, our shares of the planet and its resources, as collateral, and really they stole the world by doing that. They followed a process called the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, which they wrote just after the war. And here, actually, tomorrow is like not a celebration but a remembrance day, as the whole town here was massacred by the people who were known as the Nazis. Nazi is a word that comes from the word Ashkenazi, and Ashkenazis is a bloodline that we talked about in the session 1 video regarding the original moneylenders. So they created the money. They then said you haven't got any because it's their money, so they can. And then they took the planet in exchange, and they called that collateral. So they settled the debt using our shares, our share of the water. So we became enslaved to them. We had to buy back our shares. But as we talked about before, debt is a fiction. There is no debt. And the debt was actually created by us, because when we look at what we were actually doing, we were creating a debt in the way that we used our share, or we allowed our shares to be used in these contaminated forms, where we were actually killing ourselves and our source energy through our unconscious state of the right of use of it. So in one crazy way, yes, we did have a debt. We've got a debt to kindness. We've got a debt to the planet and the universe because of the way that we have utilised, the way that we've used these resources that have been given freely to us by the Creator, which you're going to find out is actually you at the end of these sessions. So, because of this debt, we did the same thing. We actually invoiced these corporations and said, look, these are our shares. You created the debt like this, so we're settling and discharging the debt in the same way. So they created a debt, and we said that the debt that they'd created had created you a debt, so that we're all equal, and then we can just start again with a clean slate. So that's really what, when you'll hear the words like New World Order and definition, a reset, it's what you are going to decide that means and how that's defined. So this is why it's very important for us to do these sessions, to help you try to save you some time really. In learning all of these things, or to unlearn all of the things rather that you've been taught. So we were taught, obviously, that the Allies, the British and the Americans, won the World War, but the British and the Americans were actually the Ashkenazis, dressed up as British and American, and they were also dressed up as German and Nazis, and they took all of the religions, like we said in session 1. And hijacked all of the belief systems and controlled them piece by piece. So when we say we're at peace, they've actually taken the world, the Panagia, the Panarea, the Pangaea, the one thing, and split it into little pieces in the name of peace. And we don't mean peace as in P-E-A-C-E, we mean peace as in literally a piece of the pie. So what we were able to do in that time then is we created a debt for them using their own system. They owe you, as a shareholder, 10 quadrillion slave tokens worth of kindness credits. Now, because we don't accept their slave tokens and our money looks like rocks, because it represents the rock that gives us all of the energy, that gives us all of these resources, our food, everything, it represents that. So it's got much more value to something that's fiction. And we really know that that money that we've been running around called slave tokens after is backed by our resources of the shares of the planet and the petrochemicals and the water and the oil and the gold and all of those things. So by taking, what we've said is obviously these private corporations can't pay us in our own currency because we only accept rocks. And so we've taken back one rock, which is planet Earth, and we've given you and all your family your shares back. When we went up there, I mean, there's this most sacred place, like I say, there's this special spring with all amazing properties and elements inside it. And in the mythology, what we call mythology, which actually got more truth about it than anything that we're normally given at school, there was a lady there who was called the Oracle, and the first Oracle, I've got to have a look at my notes for this one because my Greek's not that great, was named Phemone. Now it sounds like feminine, doesn't it? Phemone was the first recorded woman who would sit in this, you can still go there and you can see all this, they sit in this water-filled area, and there's gas coming out of the ground between two massive splits in the rock where the two mountain ranges underneath meet, a great fissure. And mythology says that the woman would sit there and connect to source, and they called her the Oracle. So people would come for miles around, hundreds of miles, to speak to the Oracle and consult the Oracle as to what they should do with their lives, what the future brought, things like that. So the Allies the UNESCO, in this instance, which you've probably heard of, have gone around the world and taken all of the heritage. It's a heritage site. So what they've done is they've taken all of the knowledge, all of the wealth, all of the heritage, the line of history away from these people and put a ring around it, put a big fence around it, and now charging the people, and they've been doing so for quite some time now, €12, 12 slave tokens, to go and actually see what is actually yours. So we weren't very happy about that, obviously, and now was the right time to go and get to the bottom of actually who had given these people a contract. Because when we did the debt equity swap, we swapped the paper for the rock, literally the paper for the rock. We took away all of the shares from the company, so they had nothing to trade with. I'm trying to keep this really simple because it is really simple, but our adult babble minds, like mine, babbles on. So we took the shares then and gave them back to the people. So these companies haven't got a share. The company that was standing on the shares saying we're in control of this because you've all assigned your consent to us because you're all using the legal fiction, which is the capitalisation of your given name, then you have to buy back your rights as privileges. So that's why we can charge you €12. So we went up there, obviously there's been the restoration of rights. We went to see the director, a lady who was hiding in one of the buildings, and they'd already radioed from the cashier's desk to tell her that we were coming, because obviously it's not the cashier's job to know where this money goes. So we just said, look, we're quite happy to pay, but who are we paying? Because under the Anti-Terrorism Act, if you don't know who you're paying, then it could be a terrorist, right? So we need to know who it is that we're paying and where's that money going, just like the bank would like to know. And rightly so, where's it come from, where's it going, and who's in charge of it? And where's the contract to say that there's an obligation of performance? So obviously they haven't got one. So we went along, and as I went along, there's the fence here on this side, and I was just filming through the fence at these amazing structures that are now being held to ransom. And I was doing a little bit of footage, and you'll see, I'm going to hopefully knit these things together, that as I carry the camera to the left hand side, there's some marble, and on the floor are ancient tiles. Now these tiles are made so intricately with tiny little rocks, black and white, and they actually are the symbol that we have unknowingly used, which if you look at the kindness credit, the original one that one of the ladies drew for us from a design that I gave her, it's actually like heart-shaped flowers that go all the way around the infinity loop to show that kindness never begins or ends, it just always exists. And there it is on the floor, is the actual logo, the logo that we've used supposedly 2,000 years later is actually there on the floor, and you'll see it on the video. Now, putting all of these pieces together, and people have said, you know, what are you doing here? Why have you come to this place? And the Oracle was famous for, like I said, giving predictions, and of people would come and say, should I get on the boat and go there or whatever. And one of the recordings that's been passed down through history is that she declared, one of the oracles had declared that Socrates was the wisest man. And when Socrates heard about this, apparently he was a little bit puzzled. And Socrates is a quite famous philosopher, which means the love of knowledge. And he was, obviously he knew that the oracle wouldn't lie. And so he was like, well, you know, because he was so wise, it turns out that because he was so wise, he said, all I know is that I know nothing. Now, if we look at that, if we put those two things together, there's a woman who only spoke the truth, legend has it, and that she had absolutely no reason to suggest that Socrates was the wisest man, obviously, unless that was the truth. And so by putting those two things together, so she was known for, it's actually written in the rocks, to know one is to know thyself. So to know thyself, it would then mean if you know yourself, and that's what we're hoping that we're going to be able to find out. The great quest for knowing ourselves, and we don't know who we are and we don't know where we come from. And that it was considered that by she who knew everything, so everybody went to her and said, can you tell us about this? We consider that you know everything. And she knew that Socrates was the wisest man because he knew that he knew nothing. So it's a little bit of unravelling, and it's like, what's she babbling on about as well? And I get that a lot. Now, if you are wise because you know that you know nothing, then when the oracle has said that, then it would suggest everything that we think that we know is nothing. The wisest thing that we could know is that we know everything about nothing. So here's the oracle, she knows everything. She's in this dimension where we go and we ask her, what is it you know? And because we think you know everything, so there's nothing that you don't know if you know everything. And she says, yes, okay, I know that the wisest man is Socrates because he knows that he knows nothing. So we are really, I think that this is an explanation of that we're existing in a nothing. It's actually an illusion that we're existing in, and we think that it is actually something. So when we look at that, take that thought and hold it for a few seconds while we talk about the next part. We think that we're a nothing because we have got a piece of paper and we say that's who we are. But the thing that we're saying that we are is actually a legal fiction. It's a capitalized version of our given name that hands over the control of our shares of the planet and its resources back to the system that we've gone to great lengths to try to help you, well, to actually put those shares back in a position where you can actually decide, you know, as you grow up, and even now you've got a better idea of things than a lot of the so-called adults have got, about how things could be run. A girl actually 10 years old came up with the concept of kindness credits, where people in the community would credit each other for kind deeds and gestures. And so that's obviously expanded, and it's got us to this point where we realise that if we say, yes, I'm nothing, the only thing I know is that I know that I am nothing, and you give your something away, so you're giving the claim that you're making that you are something that you don't actually know what it is that you're saying that you are, because you think that you're saying that's me, that's my name, but you're actually saying that's me and I agree to give my shares to somebody else to contaminate as a corporation and buy it back as a privilege by exchanging my energy into slave tokens to come then to pay my tax to buy it back. Now, there's not much a greater way of explaining or defining what a slavery system is, and that in itself, that you're actually converting your energy into a piece of paper to go to get the things that was yours in the first place, purely and simply because you think that you are nothing. So when you peel back these layers of what is a thing, is something that we define ourselves. We decide what this thing is. We decide if something is a good thing or a bad thing, and we sit there and wonder, is it the right thing or the wrong thing? The one thing that we use, which is quite funny, I wonder if you can explain something without using the word thing. So we're here in this environment thinking that we have got a handle on things, that we know what these things are and what these things mean. But the wisest one of us all will will reveal to ourselves that we know nothing about anything that has got any real substance to it, because we've been going around saying, hello, I'm nothing. So the wisest man spoken about by what was considered the wisest woman, whose name is Phemone. When you put those two things together, Socrates and Phemone, and you've got the wisest man knowing that he knows nothing, and the sacred feminine saying, you think that I know everything, but the thing that's coming to me to say, I think that you know everything, already admitted that he knows nothing. So in him, it's like this energy just going around and around of, in this, I think I know something, but you actually know nothing. And I know nothing about the something that I know nothing about. You can really unscramble your mind when you try to do this examination of these things that we try to define. So when you stop defining things as things, and you start to say, right, okay, I don't really know what this thing is that I'm inhabiting, I don't know what this thing is that I am, then you start to get into a different position, a different place in your vibration, in your knowing, where suddenly there's space for something else that you didn't know about, because you're too busy saying, I need to know this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, but we're in this place of nothing, and we're looking for something. And the fact that you know absolutely everything about this nothing, because it really is not a thing, that we've spent so much time trying to discover what is it, and look at the little molecules of it all, look at the tiny particles of it all, and look at the thing before it's a thing. And it's a nothing, it's not a thing, it's a non-physical thing that we're looking at. It's an energetic, an indefinable thing. So we don't know what it is. So why are we trying to catch it all the time and examine it and say, what is this thing that I am, instead of just being whatever it is that I came to be? I don't need to define myself as anything, because in truth we can't. If somebody says to you, who are you, then you're going to pull out your birth certificate and say, I'm the dead Vatican debt slave with this right of use, with this legal fiction that I haven't got the right of use of, so I'm just about to commit fraud upon my soul? Or are you going to tell the truth and say, well, like Socrates, I know nothing. All I know is that I know nothing. And I don't know what I am, I don't know where I came from, I don't want to label myself, I don't even want to try to think what I am and diminish myself to be one thing or another, or black or white or a girl or a boy or vegetable, mineral, whatever. Why would we want to take all that we don't know exists and just concentrate on the things that we think that we know exist, and put them into little pieces and compartmentalize them and examine them until and still look for the thing when it's staring us in the face, that it's actually looking at a nothing. You're starting from a point where nothing really matters, until you take that nothing that you are. You're not a thing. You're at a point before you start to become some physical thing now, something that can be perceived, mostly by yourself, and say, right, I don't know, I'm at this point now where I could be anything. You could, so taking away all of those preconditions that people might have put on you in the past, or even yourself, telling yourself, you're this, you're that, you're stupid, you're fat, you're ugly, you're gorgeous, you need bigger lips, whatever it is. you can say, actually, there's nothing that I need, because I've already got it. sends my shirts back and it's clean, whatever it is.